This is Coder Radio, Episode 3 for June 25th, 2012. Hi everyone, you're listening to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Michael Dominic. Hey there, Michael.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Hey, good morning too. Well, it's technically afternoon, but I appreciate you being graceful about it.
Oh, I got up at 10, so.
Okay, good. Well, so I saw that today's topic headline is JavaScript is not assembly, and I thought, well, that sounds interesting, but what's it mean?
So basically there's been I guess you could say an idea circulating around the web in a number of development communities, actually. I don't know where it originated, but it's become really big. Web developers, but also people on the .NET side, they're adopting JavaScript for a lot of things. And on the Ruby side, people are starting to use CoffeeScript. That basically JavaScript should be used as though it were assembly. So you write something higher level, compiled down to JavaScript.
Now, this could be interesting that this is today's topic since Google I.O. kicks off this Wednesday. So we're recording this on the 25th, and Google I.O. kicks off on the 27th. And you got to figure, at some level, what they're going to feature is probably going to have a lot of JavaScript behind it. At least something they're going to talk about, because they're big in that whole area, and especially with HTML5 and all that kind of thing, all those kinds of things that Google's involved in. I got to imagine some sort of presentation is going to show us some sort of new shiny thing that is fundamentally based on top of JavaScript.
That's true. It'll probably be based on Dart, which compiles to JavaScript.
Right. Google has Dart, don't they?
Yeah, thing, what I'm hoping for is, I like Dart, and I'm really hoping they do something with Dart where it's more portable than it currently is. I know you can compile it to JavaScript, and that's the whole point. But it really hasn't seen a lot of adoption outside of Google.
Yeah. And
I'm wondering, there's a lot of competitors too, right? There's CoffeeScript, there's SharpScript, there's JavaScript itself, which a lot of people.
That's what I would think its biggest competitor would be, but maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Well, among people who aren't using JavaScript, I would say its biggest competitor is probably CoffeeScript or something like Google's own GWT, I believe it's called, which allows you to write Java and compile it down to JavaScript. I'm not a fan of that one, but because and we can get into. We're jumping ahead a little bit, but there's an argument to say there's too much abstraction there.
Well, do you want to save that and do the feedback first?
Yeah, let's do the feedback first.
Sure, because we got a lot from last week. So thank you everyone for emailing coderradio@jupiterbroadcasting.com or using that contact form. Where do you want to start, Michael?
Just start at the top. So there was a question about the licensing on any potential Jupiter Broadcasting community app and why it couldn't be GPL. So that wasn't me being arbitrary. To be in the iOS App Store, you have to not be GPL. You have to be a non-copyleft license. So Apache, MIT, and BSD all work.
Right. And Jupiter Broadcasting has more iOS visitors than Android visitors, but not by a huge margin. It's pretty, actually, it's kind of funny. It's show dependent. So some shows have a larger Android audience. Some shows
sure it is.
Yeah, so it's kind of a mixed bag, but we do want to target that because we also are hoping for new discovery. And that doesn't mean we won't open source it, right?
So yeah, it would still be open source. It just wouldn't technically be free software, right? If you have the distinction between open source and free software, they're both free as in beer, but depending on your definition, one is not free as in freedom.
So so you're doing something more like Apache or BSD, where it's in some senses it's freer in the sense that you can do anything you want and you don't really have to do anything about it. Right. But the GPL, there's some social contracts involved, and I guess Apple has just deemed those to be incompatible with the...
Because it compiles in part of Cocoa Touch and part of their core frameworks.
So then it would be...
This all came about, there was a port of VLC for the iPad.
I remember.
That they chucked out of the store because of that, because they didn't want to be liable for, I guess, having to deal with the license. Someone is recommending dual license. We could do that. That complicates things quite a bit, and nothing says that we couldn't do something like that later. But I just wanted to make it clear because I got a few emails and people telling me to re-examine the GPL. Maybe I didn't understand what the benefits would be. I totally understand it. I have no issue with it. Unfortunately, you're playing in their sandbox and they make the rules.
So the end goal will be something that we can submit to the store, but that our listeners can also download and play with the code themselves.
I think so. And the reason for that is, Chris, we've been getting a lot of emails from more junior people. And I think it would be nice if they could have something they could bring up on their phone, and kind of put on their CV or their resume with a link to the App Store, to both app stores.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because then they could take it, they can make it something their own. They could put their own art assets in there. They could even take it for their school and do something for their school and put that in the App Store.
Yeah, and that would be that would be perfectly permissible under any of the licenses I mentioned. I mean, I don't know if you have a preference. I tend to license all my stuff under Apache.
Okay, no, I don't have a preference. Apache, there's a lot of great stuff that's licensed under the Apache license.
Such as Apache itself.
Yeah. Well, good point about that. And so I guess, is that sort of put to bed now, and maybe we'll visit dual licensing down the road as maybe once the app's actually materialized?
I think it could be put to bed now only because we need to get some real momentum on the actual project.
Okay.
And later on, we can always talk about dual licensing, maybe take the JavaScript side of the code and license it under GPL for something else.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not sure how that would work. The thing is, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't even know if you can do that.
Okay.
I'm just thinking it's more benefit for the most people doing it this way.
Yeah. Well, we can, we'll as we go, I'm sure we'll get lots of advice from the audience too. And then if we get to a point where we need to get it checked out, we can do that.
Yeah. So moving right along, a related note, I got several emails from junior developers or students wanting to know how to get involved in open source. Well, I know of an open source project that would like your help. But very generally speaking, if you can get in on the ground floor of a smaller project like this, you're going to be allowed to do more actual coding than, say, writing docs or, reporting bugs.
Yeah.
I don't recommend you email Linus and ask him if you could do a kernel branch. It's probably not going to go well.
No.
But
yeah, I would say that's a great point. Yeah. Look around for somebody who really needs some help, and then they're going to be more generous with the tasks you can do. And also, a smaller project like that, it's a less negative impact if you make a mistake, if you are really learning.
And also, that's another good point, Chris, regarding negative impact. Some projects that are very production critical can be a little harsh, right? If you make a mistake and they somehow let it through, they're going to... mistakes. Yeah. Something like this, I'm hoping the whole community will be very forgiving of if any junior developers make a mistake or a bad optimization or something like that. I'm really hoping this can be both a teaching tool for students and something that can actually benefit the entire network and everybody involved. We can all put it on our CVs or our portfolios.
That's cool, huh? That's going to be really neat. Boy, what a great way to help the network and help the community and learn together. That's going to be awesome. I'm really excited. And I should say, I was contacted by Shane. He goes by Shane Q in the chat room, and I believe. And he has created an app for Android for Jupiter Broadcasting that's available right now. So if you want to go get that, you can. Just go search for Jupiter Broadcasting in the Android market, and you'll find it there. And I think he's going to be helping us with this new project.
That's awesome. Yeah.
He's got some skills behind him, and he's worked with some of the tools that I know you are going to talk about in a while. And so yeah, I think he's fired up and ready to go.
Look at that. We have more help. If anybody, that's what we need, more help. And I actually checked out his app. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a good little app, and it's got the live stream support on there too, which is very nice.
That could be interesting.
Yeah.
So moving along, because we have a very full show today, so I'm trying to move as quickly as possible through the feedback.
Okay.
I got another, I would say, score of emails, literally tons of them, about you guys want more tools geared towards beginners. So I thought about it, and here's what I'm going to do. With every topic, I'm going to try and have a beginner tool that I'm going to touch upon briefly. I think full beginner episodes would not be fair to people who aren't beginners. Chris, I'm wondering what you think on this.
This is something, Mike, that I struggle with the Linux Action Show to a great degree, because you know we have a range of people. We have people who've never coded really anything like myself, and then you have people who are very well established in this field, and they listen, and we try to appeal to both. So gosh, you know, what I do is sort of your approach. Is I sort of swing sometimes a little bit towards the more rookier stuff, and I sort of swing every now and then more towards the more expert stuff. And every now and then there's a topic where you can cover both sides. Like yesterday on the Linux Action Show, I covered Linux logging from kind of a beginner standpoint, but also showed just a couple of really quick expert things that aren't really that hard to do, and that kind of stuff. So sometimes there's a topic where you can mix and blend, but every now and then you just have to kind of hope that the audience understands that you're trying to, you know, address both sides. And if we are going a little beginner this time, that's fine, because sometimes it's good to talk about the basics again. It makes you sort of rethink and reevaluate things. And when we swing over to the really complicated side, the reason why I don't worry about that is because I suck at like finances, and I still love tuning into shows like Money Talk and stuff like that, and just trying to absorb via osmosis and learn a little bit. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I say you just kind of go where the material takes it, and I think the audience will trust you.
Fair enough. The tribe has spoken. The next feedback I wanted to address, only because I myself got burned by this problem. So Scott emailed me, and I think you were copied on it, asking if we could use Google Drive to host the community project. The answer is no, and I'll tell you why. I tried to migrate to use Google Drive to host some source code. What happens is if you're working off enough machines with Git, for whatever reason, Google Drive makes it look like all your files were removed from the Git repo and then re-added, which can cause some nasty problems. A, it makes the history not look correct. B, if you're using some kind of binary files, it can actually break them. I used it for 2 weeks. I tried to get in touch with the Google Drive team. I emailed them. I sent them messages on Google+. I did everything I could to see if it was user error.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. The only thing, I got no replies. The only thing I found was the Google Drive group forum. People were having the same issue with Git and Google Drive. And some people had it with SVN as well.
Huh.
So I don't recommend that, because especially if you're working for clients or a boss, you don't want to lose the repo. And you don't want to have your history look like you've deleted every file and then re-added it every time you switch PCs.
Is that a bug? I mean, Google must know better than that.
I think using it in that way is not the intended use. Which, interestingly, it works in Dropbox. Dropbox somehow handles this.
Yeah, Dropbox I've noticed can preserve older file stamps and stuff like that, time dates. You know, you're right, of course, because that drive's really meant to process things like documents and spreadsheets.
Yeah, it's just not, I looked at it because, like a lot of other people, it's half the price of Dropbox. And maybe you'd prefer a Google solution. I have a lot of stuff in Google Drive. But for that one use, it's not a good solution right now. I'm hoping they fix it, or that they come out with some workaround.
Wouldn't the other advantage to Dropbox be, though, that you have it locally on your file system, so if the service is out, you can still get to it?
Yes, I believe Google Drive works that way as well.
Oh, okay. All right.
If you have the client.
It does some caching. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Again, one thing about Dropbox, you should definitely read their license. And if you have clients, make sure they're okay with their code being in it.
Mm-hmm.
And still don't use it as your source code hosting. So GitHub, Bitbucket, Beanstalk, all better solutions.
Yeah, we did a tech snap on these issues that Dropbox has there, and their shared key that they have, and those kinds of things. So if you guys are curious, go search for that on the Jupiter Broadcast.
Yeah, there's some, and unless a client asks, there's some definite liability with using Dropbox. And again, that's lawyer stuff, so I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, gone. All right, so John emailed as well, Chris, asking about what have been called dark matter developers. That's a term I stole from. It's big in the .NET community, and I've heard it in the web community as well.
Okay.
These are basically 9-to-5 guys. They are using VB6. They've been using it for 10 years, and they're pretty happy.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about this, how Microsoft isn't dropping support for VB6 for like ever. Now, why dark matter?
It's a joke. You can't see them, but there's more of them than there are us, quote unquote.
The unseen 99%, the article says.
Yep.
So this is like these are like the average Joes that just probably go work and do a lot of internal development for companies. Because I know
Exactly.
there's a huge market of internal corporate developers that I have as a contractor. Almost every company I go to that's of a certain size has a small little in-house development team.
Right. And John recommended that I discuss them a little more. So I can. Here's the issue, and I don't want to offend anybody, but the 9 to 5 people who are using VB6 by choice and don't want to upgrade to anything else, I don't think they listen to podcasts, and I don't think they read blogs about programming.
Not unless they're dreaming about moving on.
And unless they're really dreaming about moving on. But I think what he's really trying to get at is that, not all development's on the App Store. Not all development's public-facing web app. And that's very true.
Isn't this one of the reasons why you see when developers are polled that Java still ranks so extremely high as in active languages because so much internal development is done in Java? That's one stat I've read.
Yeah, Java's huge on enterprise.
Yeah.
I mean, and even doing Mac development, I've done enterprise apps, that will never see the public light of day.
This is also a huge spot where ASP is still heavily used. Like I know a lot of corporate applications that are internal intranets that are all done in early ASP and run on top of IIS that they would never put on the public web. So, a web scan wouldn't find them.
Yeah, web scan would never find them. Assuming reasonable security practices, they're locked into the intranet. They'll never see an outside server, and they're safe in quotes. And though, there are a lot of projects like that. There's a lot of companies like that. The problem I have is if we start covering super old things, that opens the gate to so many more topics.
Yeah, I could almost see maybe a retro episode or something.
Maybe. But even then, which retro? Do we want to go to Fortran?
Maybe the best of retro? I don't know, man. That's hard. I don't know.
So if anybody has any ideas, I'd definitely like to hear them because to me, that's kind of a Pandora's box.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeez, no kidding.
So
yeah, once you go down that route, that could be a real rabbit hole.
Yeah, it could be. So about that community project.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris? Yes or no?
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
All right, then give me 2 hours. There'll be a GitHub repo. I think the show notes has a link to my GitHub, and I'll write up a quick README on how things will be set up. If you're not familiar with GitHub, I would definitely read the tutorials, especially on pull requests. Proper code formatting and pull request formatting is required, unfortunately. So, make your commits logical. So please don't put "this is better." If you address a certain issue, please tell us what issue, etc. Just good code etiquette. Actually, Jed did write about that, teaching some code etiquette, which I think this project will do. Because I got to be honest, if you send a pull request that's the code's not readable, it's just going to get sent back. if not by me, then by somebody else. So
that's fair. That's fair. We want it to look good. We want this application to properly represent the Jupiter Broadcasting Network.
Well, it's not only that. It's if I can't read your code. So if you send me let's say a pull request, and it takes me more than 20 minutes to figure out what you're doing between the code and the commit message, it means there's something wrong with what you're doing. Yeah. In my opinion, the code should be simple. It should be written. Pretend everybody reading it's a 5-year-old, and keep your line endings Unix. Somebody mentioned that in chat. Oh. Yeah, we want Unix line endings.
Another good reason to do this is because we, like you mentioned, we do have what appears to be a decent sized contingent of young learning developers, and we want them to be able to look at the code and be able to actually learn from it.
Right, and if we have to, me or someone else ends up maintaining it, or the community as a whole, there's nothing worse than opening a file and it being completely illegible. If you have variables like V or I or C,
right,
it's going to get rough.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Code snippets or code samples. I think we should do that, Chris, but we're going to do it twice a month.
Okay, so we don't get weighed down with it or something like that.
Right, and I have something I'm going to be sharing pretty soon around code samples.
Okay, we could probably do code samples from the app once the app gets rolling too, right?
Yeah, that'll probably be the first few.
Cool.
I think we may build them off of GitHub's gist functionality, only because then I can just use a hard link.
Okay.
and it would always be readable, always have syntax highlighting.
Plus, it would kind of link people back to the project
Exactly.
page. Yeah, so that's cool too.
Um,
Okay. Wow. Well, that's really cool. I am excited. I mean, to have something in the iOS store will be great because we have, like I said, a contingent of iOS users that have been asking that I just been like, that's not anything I'm ever going to be able to do. But and that's how you and I initially met each other. I was kind of discussing that plight with you. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got some show topics that we need to get into. Remember, this show is JavaScript is not assembly, and we're going to jump into that. But before we do, I just want to give a quick mention to our Firefox affiliate extension. Now, not all our affiliates support this, but the ones that do, if you go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and click on this week's episode of Coder Radio, which this will only be in the show notes because we're still we're like 99% sure the extension's ready to go, but we just want to make sure. And I think this would be a great audience to let me know. So if you go over to Coder Radio episode 3 over on jupiterbroadcasting.com, in the show notes, I'll have a link for the Firefox extension. And what that does is when you visit some of our affiliate sites, it automatically turns on the Jupiter Broadcasting affiliate code and just attributes a portion of your shopping session anonymously to us. We get like a percentage from Newegg and Audible.com, and I believe even Amazon is in there. And you can go in there and you can do those kinds of purchases and then generate this little revenue just by getting yourself something. And now with the Firefox extension, you don't even have to click the link that's over on the bottom of our website. So how awesome is that? But you can find those links over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. At the bottom end of the page, just scroll all the way down. If you'd like to shop at Amazon US or UK, Newegg, ThinkGeek, Best Buy, get yourself a Mint account, or grab yourself a great Audible book, or maybe a Gamefly account. Use those links first, and some of that credit goes to Jupiter Broadcasting. You can also grab the Chrome extension. Now, the Chrome extension has been tested. It's ready to go. It's down there at the bottom. But the Firefox extension will only be in the show notes for this week's episode. It's still a limited time deal.
Awesome.
And if you end up using it and you buy something that you're not embarrassed by buying, and so you don't mind identifying yourself, email Angela at jupiterbroadcasting.com, tell her what you bought, and she'll look it up in our reports table so we can make sure that Firefox extension is fully working. But we've had a few people do that for us now, and the results have been good.
That's great.
All right, sir, should we move on to the argument?
Yep. Can I just address one thing in the chat?
Oh, yeah, totally.
So to do the community app, you do not need a Mac or an iPhone. NetOpuse thinks he can't help because he doesn't have either.
Okay.
The logic of the app is written in JavaScript and HTML5 and CSS.
Right.
And the way I'm doing it on GitHub is there's going to be a iOS branch and a Android branch, and below them they're going to have staging and master and feature branches.
But all the core stuff is going to be shared between the two platforms since it's based on essentially HTML5.
Yeah, I would say 95% of the JavaScript will be identical.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, now why don't we get to this argument?
All right, let's do it. So, JavaScript is an assembly language. Let's just take that as a fact because it's, factually true.
Okay.
Yet people want to use it like it, and people have been making this analogy on the web. Number one is Mr. Scott Hanselman, and I keep mentioning him because he's kind of a big mover in the web world. Recently, he joined up with Microsoft, and they're using JavaScript as a large platform themselves. But more importantly, they make IE. As much as you might not like it, when they do something in JavaScript, you still have to support it.
Right.
Or else your client's going to be upset that their web app doesn't work in the browser they probably use.
Yeah. Or their customers use.
Yeah, or their intranet, as we discussed before, which is probably IE6.
Yeah. God.
That's just I think I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
So he has one argument that he split among two blog posts and was seconded and thirded and fourth by a lot in the general web development community. The first one is that there's no point in not using JavaScript like an assembly language because everybody minifies it and you can't read it. That's a good point, right? Because the whole idea is that the web was supposed to be open source. You hit view source, you can read it.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Now with everybody minifying their JavaScript,
It's just garbage.
You can't read it. He's right about that. His second point was that it's become a little too mutated, and he has other points here, but these are what I think are his best too. JavaScript, the language, has become a little too gross, a little too maybe corrupt by other ideas. So it allows developers to make a lot of silly mistakes. Your app, therefore, the mistake, Safari might ignore the mistake. So would Chrome. WebKit might ignore it. Firefox is going to blow up. IE might blow up. and it works the other way too, right? Might be okay in Firefox, might puke in Safari and Chrome. And everything fails on IE6, so
Yeah.
good luck.
Yeah, sorry about that, A, but it's true.
I mean, I'd like to say that's not the case, but that's factually true, right? Your JavaScript is not necessarily going to work the same on every browser.
Mm-hmm.
And more often than not, the older the browser, the worse off you are.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's an argument for a layer of abstraction that magically deals with it. There is, however, a third argument being made, not by him, but by a lot of people in the web community, and I know a lot of these people personally, that JavaScript's just too hard.
Yeah.
I mean, they say it in different ways, right? The thing they like to say is, well, JavaScript, I know Java, it doesn't work like Java. Yeah. And they usually start it off with JavaScript sucks. So to me, that argument fails to understand what JavaScript is, and I think people get a little deceived by the name.
Because it's
right?
just because of the name script part of it?
Well, because the name Java.
Oh, okay. All right. See, I have a different. I see when I hear the name script, I think it's not capable enough.
Really? That's very
bias.
Interesting.
My bias is, well, it's a scripting language. You don't do anything serious with a scripting language.
That's very interesting. I see a lot of, especially of interns or junior developers, try and impose Java patterns or Java, ideas of inheritance onto JavaScript, and they simply don't work. And because it's not written that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought really fast we would go over what exactly is JavaScript.
Okay, perfect.
So JavaScript is a implementation of the ECMA standard, ECMA. JavaScript's sibling is ActionScript, if anybody has ever done Flash development.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm familiar.
Sure.
We've talked about ActionScript quite a bit on the network, actually.
Yeah, I mean, up until, recently, ActionScript was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And you might even say that JavaScript is an uglier implementation of the standard because of how warped it's been by the browser venues.
And ActionScript is open source now, isn't it?
It is, but yeah, I mean, I've used it. It is definitely cleaner.
Yeah.
The problem is, where am I going to run it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Firefox,
it's kind of
Firefox.
Yeah, you could run it in Flash. You could run it in Adobe Air.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you have Flash, yeah.
Yeah. So that's something important to understand. The next thing is JavaScript is only called JavaScript for marketing reasons. If you look at the Wikipedia page, they literally say that it was called JavaScript because Java was really popular. There is no relation between the two languages.
Oh, well, that makes a huge difference in my mind. I had no idea.
Zero relation.
I had no idea.
Java is a classical inheritance-based language. JavaScript is a more functional, prototypical inheritance-based language. They're not the same.
That is hilarious. That is really funny. I'm sorry. I feel like such a noob. I didn't know that.
I mean, if they had just called it ECMAScript, I think half these problems would have gone away because people wouldn't have tried to take over their Java knowledge into JavaScript. And yeah.
And the other thing is Java has sort of a performance stigma associated with the name. And so I thought it's a slow scripting language. Like, why would anybody want a slow scripting language, and then why would they write everything in this? And I thought, and then as time went on, I got more and more impressed with what it could do, so my biases started to go away. But my initial reactions was Java equals slow, scripting equal less capable.
I mean, yeah. So that's a different argument, right? Native code versus managed code. That whole.
Yeah. I didn't mean to throw us down that route. I'm just saying those are the biases the name generated in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, there is people are mentioning in the chat, one level of relationship that they share a similar syntax. That's true, but most programming languages use a syntax similar to Java. Most modern ones do. Mm-hmm. Or maybe not most, but a lot of them do. Any kind of C-type language. With the exception of Objective-C, because they're just different. So then we have to say, all right, so we accept that it's not classical inheritance, or we should accept that. So what is it? It's prototype inheritance, and that is a way too complicated issue to go into in a podcast. But I would encourage you to Google it and to kind of think of things in terms of functions rather than classes. And if it's a little hard to wrap your brain around, then we have a solution for you, right? We have all these alternative platforms that we'll get into. But the problem with that is we didn't get here by accident.
Of course not.
the aliens didn't come down and say, that language over there, ECMAScript, we're gonna mess with it.
Here are your exactly. No, that didn't happen. No, it was a bunch of really smart guys and women.
Yeah. So in 10 days, the aliens said, and on the 10th day, we will break IE6.
I wish it was that way.
We can't blame the Martians here.
No, blame Microsoft though a little bit.
It's easy to blame Microsoft, but there's a lot of people who, I would say myself included, who should take some blame.
Really? You're blaming yourself a little bit.
Blaming myself. Every time that I don't delete a line of JavaScript that reeks of classical inheritance, I'm making the internet worse. I'm not saying I wrote that line. I'm saying that I'm maintaining it.
If you come across it and you don't clear it off the face of this earth,
it's a problem.
Really? Really?
I think trying to impose classical inheritance in JavaScript,
it's going at it the wrong direction, right?
It's looking at it the wrong way. It's like trying to write. Let's give a good example. Perfect. Let's say Unity for Ubuntu, right?
Okay.
It's like trying to write a Unity app but make it look just like Windows 98 because you're familiar with Windows 98. You're kind of trying to force a square into a round hole, and it's not going to work. All right. But yes, Chris, go ahead, nail Microsoft, because you see my next point.
That's what I was thinking. You got to blame the browsers; they're all responsible. But I mean, especially Internet Explorer.
Yeah, I mean, they break the internet every Thursday. It seems like.
Yeah.
But it's not just IE, right? So now we have competing JavaScript engines. We have WebKit and V8, and now we have Gecko on the other side with, I think that's Mozilla. I really wish there was just one standard. That's it.
That's never how it works, though.
But I can't wish it.
Well, you can wish it, but if it's not how it is, then you just kind of, you're kind of left to. I guess that's sort of the challenge of the job, and why you can charge a little more in some cases, because you do have to sort of write sometimes multiple times.
So that's interesting. You should bring it up. This show is supposed to be about the art and business. Part of the business side is in my contracts. I make them denote which browsers and which versions they want it to run on.
Very good.
Because that is a huge issue. And the price goes up a lot if they pick certain Internet Explorer versions.
I bet, right? I mean, the later versions, how bad is it with, like, say, 9 and 8? It's not that bad, right?
No, I would say 8 isn't bad. 9 is, you can pretty much ignore it. It's fine. But once you get into 7, things get a little weird.
Yeah.
And if you get into 6, honestly, I try not to take...
Just render the whole page as a BMP. Just and walk away. Just a BMP.
Well, there's also a business problem, though. You show the client an example in Chrome. It's magical. Everything's moving. It's animated. It's great.
Right.
Then he whips out IE6.
Yeah.
And nothing works. It's a static page. The basic functionality is there, but it's very, it's a 90s web page.
I'll tell you, though, I do believe that the trend is changing. I have a client who now Internet Explorer is sort of the way they originally developed their web app, around an ActiveX plugin and all of that crap. And now the world has moved to iPads and Chrome and Firefox, and they don't do that plugin. And now they are fundamentally rewriting the whole top layer of their web app to support these different, and now IE is going to be the second-class citizen.
Wait. They're using ActiveX?
They were, back in the day. Now they're doing it all now in HTML5, and they're using all no plugins required, all just right in the browser. But the problem is now they're hitting is IE isn't quite as capable as some of these.
Sure.
And in some ridiculous ways, the reason why I mentioned the iPad is they've actually been able to do things because they deal with very large images, and they can actually render them and use them more easily on the iPad Safari browser than in Internet Explorer.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest, I'm still floored by their using ActiveX. Don't they know the security implications?
Well, they created it like 10 years ago, and now they're transitioning, but they've just waited too long, like everybody else does.
I would have a security consultant. I would be very concerned if they had an ActiveX thing running for 10 years.
Oh, it's horrifying.
I mean, I'm just not even from a development point of view. I would have to burn the servers.
Oh, don't even get me started on the servers. Don't even.
You couldn't trust the machine. How could you trust the machines?
Don't
native code.
Don't. I mean, you wouldn't even believe it. It's horrible. It's awful.
Oh my God. Okay, that's a whole different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Um,
I know.
so I have a book recommendation. Wow, ActiveX. Sorry, it's called JavaScript: The Good Parts.
JavaScript. Okay.
Basically, this book will tell you everything you should be using in JavaScript, and it will basically make you write ECMAScript. Um, Great for beginners. I read it last year, because I wanted to know what the good parts are, what some things I had been doing wrong forever were. This should be your JavaScript Bible. If you're doing JavaScript development and you only read one book, make it the good parts. Because the great thing is it just omits all the bad crap. So anything you shouldn't be doing isn't in the book, or it's mentioned in the book very strongly and very negatively.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you can get it with the affiliate link too. I'll put it in the show notes with the affiliate link. And what I like
right.
is the Kindle edition. Although I don't know, I think I'd kind of want the book for this one, but the Kindle edition is $9. That's not bad.
Yeah, I have the Kindle edition, but it's
How is it? Is it okay? Like when you're looking up something to browse through a Kindle edition, don't you kind of miss being able to just flip to the right page?
yeah, I mean, I tend not to buy Kindle editions of reference books. This book I just bought and read through cover to cover. But yeah, so when I buy a reference book, I wish Amazon would get their act together on that a little better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get your act together, Amazon.
Yeah, come on, what are you guys doing? Let's go.
Why don't I mention before we jump on to the project stuff we want to chat about is you can support Jupiter Broadcasting by donating directly. And I don't mention this very often, but the reason I want to is we are looking now at sort of bringing up revenues, and we rely on donations to sort of supplement the amount of ads we have to have on the network. That's sort of my model. Is I really want to keep ads to a minimum on all of our shows, so that way really what's driving the shows is the content of the show and what you want to see or hear as an audience. And really the advertiser component, I'd like to keep it a minimum, just enough to pay the bills. And one way you can help us keep ads down is by donating directly over at jupiterbroadcasting.com/donate. And you can set up a one-time payment or a small monthly contribution if you think some of the shows are worth it for you. And also, be sure to leave a little note on our donor recognition wall, maybe plug your website, something like that. It's a good way to give yourself a little plug. People read through these from time to time and check out the links to people that support our shows. So it's a good way to get a credit for yourself and give yourself a plug. Also, it helps with your SEO ranking, and then also you can contribute monthly, and that helps keep us on the air and keep these ads to a minimum. All right, sir, why don't we talk about this project?
All right, so I think there's a lot to talk about on the project. That's why I gave it a full section.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it's big. I mean, this is like I'm still wrapping my brain around this.
And okay, so it's on GitHub, right? The reason for that is it's open. Everybody can see it. It's very simple to send a pull request. And GitHub offers great tutorials for newbies. I think we talked about this in the first episode as well.
I even got tweets already saying like, "Hey, where's the GitHub page for that community app?" Like we hadn't even started talking about it yet.
Did you really? Wow.
Yeah. People expect it, I guess.
I'll do it after the recording then. All right. And I don't have any work, guys. It's fine.
Yeah, seriously, right? Yeah, don't kill yourself over this, man. Just take your time.
No. Yeah. Next thing is PhoneGap. I think we're gonna go with PhoneGap because it's supported on a lot of platforms. It's written in HTML5, and I believe they recently open sourced it in a way. Although you never know with Adobe.
Yeah.
I know there's I think an open source version. Yeah, if somebody could correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's called Cordova, right?
Cordova, huh? I don't know. I haven't heard of that.
I think so.
I'll watch the chat room.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. But either way, PhoneGap is a solution. We're going to go with it. It's fairly stable, but like anything else, it has issues, right? So currently they're on PhoneGap 1.8 whatever.
Mm-hmm.
One thing you have to watch out for is if you want to integrate any plugins and you just find a random guy's plugin on GitHub, he might have written it to like 1.4 and it's not going to work. So, you have to be a little careful. And I just want to make it clear, we are going with the most recent version of PhoneGap.
There you go.
It's supposed to fix some performance issues on Android, which is why we're going with it.
So what's required to use PhoneGap? Like, do you have to buy it?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. You just have to be sure you're using the right version.
Yeah, you just have to be sure you're using the right version. I know there is a paid version, but the open source version will do the job.
Okay, great.
And I think they may have gotten rid of the paid version.
Oh, wow.
It's been... Yeah. So the one thing is they move pretty fast on this project. So it'd be interesting to see if there's been any changes on my end. Because last thing I wrote, I think was in PhoneGap like 1.5. So it's been some time.
Yeah. Okay. That's exciting.
Well, it's a good thing to mention regarding tools. So we're using Git. If you're on a Unix or a Linux or Mac machine, Git for the command line. If you're familiar with it, that's probably the best way. Otherwise, on Mac, GitHub's GUI client is good. On Linux, there's other competing clients. I know Atlassian makes one, and I think it runs in certain Linux distros. But let's be honest, if you're running Linux, you're hardcore. You can do it from the command line. That's how I do it. On Windows, please use the GitHub client because otherwise you can mess up the line endings, and that's a huge problem.
Okay.
Because we need to stick with Unix line endings.
Yes.
Because I have a feeling the vast majority of people are not going to be on Windows boxes.
I'll be interested to see.
Yeah.
We'll find out. What do you think, Linux?
I think it's going to be almost all Linux. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll see.
And if there's any Windows users in the chat, let me know. But I have a feeling it's going to be mostly probably Linux.
That'd be cool.
Hopefully no KDE though. I mean.
Oh, ouch! Judgy.
No, I love you guys, KDE, and I haven't gotten any hate mail for those comments yet. What's going on?
Yeah.
A little disappointing.
Well.
One final note. There are docs online, and so if you're very new, please use them. Like any other community project, and this kind of goes back to for new developers, definitely read the docs first, right? Before you ping myself or anyone else involved in the project.
Mm-hmm.
This is just good etiquette. I mean, I'm sure Chris is familiar with this type of thing.
Yeah.
If the question's something that Google knows, don't ask a person. I mean, and I actually, Chris, you're laughing. We got a long email about this. Jed was telling me we should definitely reinforce good programming etiquette.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I'd say it's lacking in all areas. I often get emails that I could just literally take the question and almost line copy paste into Google and get the answer. It's kind of funny. I think what it is I take it though as a compliment. Like people just really just trust in the opinion they're seeking. So I don't know. I don't know exactly how it works, but yeah.
Well, it's not bad. The thing is, I don't want to get into a situation where other people get aggravated and we get the RTFM responses.
Right. And the other thing too is it takes away from answering other legitimate, more complex questions that can't just be Googled.
And anytime somebody's answering a question, they're not writing any code.
Right.
So, that's another issue.
Yeah. So one of the things Scott asked in the chat room is, what about art and things like that? Have you thought about those kinds of things? How can people help out with that type of stuff?
Send us art. It's pretty simple. So if it's going to be a commercial-facing app, it needs to have a very polished graphical look, right? It may even need a slightly different look for either platform. Yeah, I mean, we could do I've actually didn't give this any thought, so I'm spitballing here.
Okay.
We could do some kind of poll, different potential layouts, different potential graphical styles, and let the community vote. It depends. I don't know how many designers want to get involved. Scott is apparently one. So, yeah, I mean, Chris, do you have a big designer audience?
I know we have a few out there. I know we do because we've had some people who've stepped up over the years and helped us out with different artwork things and stuff like that. So I've always been really impressed by that. So you never know. We might be surprised.
All right. Well, then get in touch. I'll have to think about that. I'll post something on my website about
that one. That one might be easier to figure out once the app is a little better defined and we kind of have an idea of what it's going to, functionally lay out like and things like that.
Yeah, that'll be a little easier. Depending on how fast the community is, though. I mean, I'm reading the chat. These guys are pretty hardcore, Chris. I think there's going to be pull requests before I get the repo up.
Possibly. They might have tried a few times during the show already.
I was wondering why my GitHub kept getting locked. Any help would be appreciated, including, things as simple, or not simple, because I've done this job, copy editing.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
I'm a terrible typist. I spell everything wrong.
Yeah.
Very famously, I spelled current user with 4 R's.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a running joke for one of my clients because I can't spell.
Current. You just got to roll those R's.
Well, I said he was a South American user, and he was very proud of the trill. It's called a trill if you ever studied linguistics. I thought it was a good way to spell it, but it got taken out.
I love that you have the time to learn what the trill is, but you don't have time to learn how to spell current. It's funny. It's just funny how the brain works, isn't it?
English is a boring language.
I don't bother too much with it myself. Anybody that actually gets emails back from me knows that. The other thing is I'm very ADD when I'm writing email. So I will literally stop in the middle of a thought and then come back and be like, oh, what was I saying? And sometimes not quite nail it. And so it's a little disconnected.
Yeah, I feel bad for some of the community that emailed me. Some of them got like 2-line responses. Others got essays.
Yeah.
So it depends on how much time I had.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's pretty good. Unless, Chris, do you have any other ways you think they could help?
No, I just say keep tuning in because we're going to just, keep kind of chatting about this. We'll probably use like the little last part of the show to chat about this from time to time, right? So people can keep tuning in as we'll get rolling. We'll start getting more things figured out and getting the word out there.
Yeah, that definitely.
Yeah. All right, you got a tool this week, yeah?
I do. I have an exciting tool.
Okay.
It's a tool I've been using for some time. It's called Code School. It's codeschool.com.
Learn by doing.
Learn by doing. It's not free. But it's a tool for learning programming or learning different programming stacks than what you might be familiar with. And I use it to just brush up on things or to even learn new technology.
I wonder if they have an affiliate program because this is a great idea.
Yeah, we should get in touch with them because I use them pretty religiously.
Yeah, this looks really cool and it's really well put together. I'm impressed with their website too.
Yeah, and right now they're featuring, I know they're featuring a Ruby testing thing. And I think they're still featuring Backbone, but I'm not sure. But they definitely skew towards the web space, and the reason for that is that it all runs in your local web browser. So when you write your code and compile it, it'll give you error correction, it gives you syntax highlighting, tells you if you're wrong, right. It can even give you hints based on what you've done.
Oh, and they're adorable about the names too.
Yeah, they're pretty clever about the names.
Anatomy of Backbone.js, Rails for Zombies 2. Journey into mobile. Oh, this is really well done.
Yeah.
I got to get a hold of these guys. I'm really impressed. Okay, well, great. So codeschool.com.
And I think they even have a free lesson. I think it's either on JavaScript or it might be Ruby.
It looks like they have a series of videos too.
Yeah, they also have a series of older videos. I mean, even if you're, let's say, that VB6 developer in your dark room, it's nice to learn other technology.
Wow. Oh, look at that. You know what? Chat room. You're not kidding. The chat room really is on it. They are on it like you wouldn't believe. They've already supplied me with the affiliate link information. So I'll take a look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah, they would be a great sponsor because I actually use them at least once a week.
They say we could earn $15 every time someone buys something on Code School using the affiliate link. And if they sign up for a subscription, we get $60.
So don't sign up. Nobody sign up today. Forget I even said it.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if people want to check it out, they can check it out. Maybe next week we'll have an announcement if we've gotten because I'm sure they'll have to approve us and things like that. It usually takes a couple of days. So maybe next week we'll have an announcement about it. I'll keep the link handy.
They're big KDE fans, so we might have some trouble.
Oh, yeah. Maybe they'll disqualify us because of your comments already.
Well, I'm sorry, but
it's all right. It's all right. So codeschool.com. If you guys want to check it out, you don't have to wait for us to get on board. But if you do want to wait, maybe stay tuned next week. Maybe we'll have an announcement for you. All right. Well, Michael, I think that wraps up the whole show, yeah?
That's pretty much it. I just had one quick shout out.
Okay.
It's actually an ask for help.
Okay.
Are there anybody in the chat room or in the community as a whole, if you're working on an Ubuntu app, can you please get in touch with me? I'm having some issues with the various platforms they're using.
Oh, okay. And so you kind of got a tough spot, huh?
I'm in a bit of a tough spot. I started using one development stack because of convenience. And I'm in a little bit of trouble because it seems like the API is not quite there.
This is what you should talk about on the show at some point when you get to a point where you feel like you got your head around it and you got it fixed.
Yeah, well, I wanted to be able to talk about this and then right after Google I/O.
Okay. So maybe you will still. Don't know.
Well, I can tell you, I picked Mono.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay.
So it was either Java or Mono because I didn't want to, I wasn't familiar with their Python stack.
Yeah.
And I think I may have to learn their Python stack unless there's a way to hook into some of their more.
Yeah, boy.
The issue is I want to hook into their status bar features, and I can't find a way to do it in Mono.
Yeah, I don't, and that's just not a platform on Ubuntu or really any Linux desktop. That's not Ubuntu specific. That's going to be around for a long time.
Well, what really threw me for a loop is that they put it right there on the developer homepage, supported platforms, Java, Python, Mono.
So you were like looking it up, and that's what you. That's funny.
So
You took a very like traditional, I'm going to develop for this platform approach to it.
well, I wanted something that was familiar to what I do normally, right? Because I'm doing a cross-platform app. There's going to be a Mac version that's written in Objective C. There may or may not be a Windows version, so that's why I kind of thought, well, Mono C Sharp, it's easily portable to Windows, and with things like Miguel de Icaza's Zemiria, I can also port the backend logic to Android.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Zemiria, not Zemiria.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seemed like a good idea, but now I'm trying to get a few of those, those nice native touches, which is why I'm doing them all separately.
I mean, I think Silverlight and Mono and Moonlight, all those technologies that kind of got interconnected towards the last couple of years are all kind of fading out on Linux.
And I just want to clarify, Mufasa in the chat room is telling me Java works on everything. So Java works, right? Mono works too. The app works. I want to integrate with some of Unity's features. I want to integrate with some of the Ubuntu specific stuff because I want each port to feel like it's specifically designed for its platform.
Right, and then people love that when when you get something that really feels like it integrates with your desktop. People love that.
So I've put a lot of work into the Mac port, and it is a native Objective C app, but it really feels like it was only ever thought of for Mac. And I'd like the same because I'm not going to release something that's not quality. If I can't get a good experience on Ubuntu, then I'm just not going to release it.
Well, the chat room's saying Python equal Ubuntu.
I know it's unfamiliar, and I can't take it anywhere. It would be a huge investment to restart in Python.
That's the issue, isn't it? Like if you could write a Python app and then you could reclaim that time on other platforms too, it would be easier for you to make that jump, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I did look at GNU Step for Objective C. It's not very well supported. The only other option that I think I should have taken was I almost wrote the whole thing in C++, and I should have done that. But it's too late, right? The Mac app's basically done. It's in Objective C, and the Ubuntu app is feature complete except all the native features. So come on, Linux Action Show audience.
So you're just in the home stretch. You just need this last part.
Well, I'm in the home stretch, but it might be done. I'm very serious about if this is kind of a little philosophical. If you're going to target a platform, the experience should be for that platform. It shouldn't be. I hate when I open an app and it's very clearly a Java app that runs okay on everything rather than being specific to one platform. I find that terribly frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, an Ubuntu app should integrate with, Unity, maybe Ubuntu One. Should look very important. Should look like an Ubuntu app.
There's a platform advantage too because Unity is 1204. Unity kind of, if it came into its own, if you're going to use Unity, you like it now in 1204, and people are going to be hungry for apps that sort of reinforce that desktop choice.
Yeah. That's the other thing. I mean, I know the chat room is going crazy about Python. It is definitely a cross-platform language, but the problem is it's also unfamiliar to me, Ubuntu's quickly implementation. So I did want to go with something a little more familiar. And I mentioned Java. I think it's obvious why I considered Java for some other platforms. What is familiar would be any C-like language.
What do you think about like they have a recommendation in here? There's a Python cross-platform wrapper for GUI libraries. So I guess you kind of use, you'd kind of have to do some customization for the top layer of it, but
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I've been looking into, and also Natch is recommending a access layer for the Ubuntu specific stuff. That's probably what I'm going to have to do. I'm basically just frustrated that on the main page of the developer page they list Mono as a and they don't say it's a second class citizen. They say it's it's right up there with Python, and then when you get down into it, it's really not. And we kind of touched upon this in the first episode about too many development stacks on the Ubuntu App Store might be a problem. I didn't think it would be a problem for developers.
Yeah, I guess since you were researching it, one big helpful thing would have been if they hadn't listed Mono as a supported platform for you to use.
Well, they could have said it's supported limitedly, right? Not instead. They make it seem like it's fully supported.
Yeah. Oh yeah, limited support would have worked too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's I hope I can ship the Ubuntu version at the same time as the other one, because I know it would be very popular, and I really like what they've done with 12.04.
Yeah.
And if anybody has the knowledge of how to do this without doing any kind of weird bridging type thing, I'd love to know it. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go with bridging, and everything I write in the future is going to have to be in assembly. That's the only option.
Can I ask you something unrelated? Sure. Wednesday is Google I/O, and sure. There's a lot of hype around Google I/O, and I know we're going to be talking about it on the next couple of Coda Radios, right?
Tentatively 2. There's a chance it could get cut to 1. It really depends on what they announce.
Right. Now, people like Ohm Malik over at GigaOhm are saying it's going to be something like they're gonna have an EC2 competitor that competes with EC2 and Azure, which they kind of have some of that now a little bit in the database regards, but they're also rumored to be a Nexus tablet.
Yeah, I'm going to have to buy that.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Also rumors of Jelly Bean to be launched at Google I/O, which...
I hate to say it, that doesn't matter. No one's, the carriers aren't going to upgrade your phone.
I know, nobody's even on Ice Cream Sandwich.
Yeah,
This is their problem. This is something they got to fix. They got to fix this.
And that's really frustrating from a development point of view, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But...
I don't know. So I'm curious. You and I will be watching also rumored Google Assistant, sort of their Siri competitor. So we'll be talking about probably some of the things that apply to developers. And I'm hopeful, not just for the Android stuff, but honestly, I'd really like to see some cool stuff with the web. See what they can really...
Yeah, I'd like to see a real EC2 competitor. If they come out with something like that, that's maybe a little cheaper.
You remember last year they announced their store, right? That didn't really, for general websites, that didn't quite take off too much. You got a few things on there, but there's not a ton on there that I really am familiar with.
You mean the Chrome store?
Well, yeah, but they also, remember they were going to do any website could integrate like a Google payment system for subscriptions and things like that, and it would be featured through like a website store. Do you remember this?
I never heard of that.
There you go. Might have been a couple of years ago. It never went anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at the Chrome store. It's had some adoption, right? There's some pretty big name. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of big names in there, and then there's a bunch of really in between stuff. But
yeah,
I guess Natch in the chat room says that they've today there's a story that the tablet's already leaked out, so it is kind of a confirmed thing. 7-inch tablet with a Tegra 3 chip, and it'll be running Jelly Bean.
Did they leak the price point?
Well, they say priced it. You ready for this? You have a guess?
Hit me.
Do you have a guess?
$250 American.
Rumored price is $199 US.
Get out, $199.
Yeah, they say it's aimed as a direct competitor at Amazon's Kindle Fire.
Oh my God, can I buy it even though it's not announced? Hang on, where's my credit card?
So there you go. So people,
$199. That could be a real iPad competitor.
I know it. And running Jelly Bean, so it's going to have a new, because that's the problem with the Kindle. Why it doesn't really, the Fire doesn't really appeal to me, just because I would want a full Android tablet.
Well, the Fire is also really underpowered, and I don't know how much you've used it, but I feel the tactile response, not tactile, but the kinetic response when I'm dragging things on the screen isn't quite there.
Mm. I would think a Nexus, or whatever they're going to call it, tablet, would have to, those kinds of things they'd have to have smooth.
While we're on the rumor mill, is it true that Jelly Bean is 4.1, not 5.0?
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't read that closely when I just saw the Jelly Bean headline, because I was kind of rolling my eyes at that point.
Because to me, that sends a very interesting message regarding how long the 4 family is going to last.
Jelly Bean is 4.1, it says right here, and not 5.0, as many will be expecting.
So I wonder if the API to Jelly Bean hasn't changed much.
That would be responsible of them, considering
that would be smart.
The lack of adoption that ICS has had, and people are probably just now starting to target it and to pull the rug out from underneath developers to just piss a lot of people off.
Yeah, that would honestly, if they made the 4 family last 2 years rather than 1, that would simplify my life a lot.
Didn't they signal a while ago an intention to start slowing down in that regard? And they really should. I mean, Android's getting very feature rich now.
It's feature rich, and there's you really shouldn't arbitrarily change the API if you don't need to,
right?
In my opinion.
Yeah, not unless something forces you to.
Yeah. I mean, I think Eric Schmidt should just do what I want in a very general way.
Maybe he could just, why don't you tell Eric Schmidt how he could get a hold of you, since maybe he'd want to, confer with you before the conference. Maybe
Sure,
over on your Twitter account?
I don't think he'd want to find me on Twitter, but I'm at Dumanuku on Twitter.
Okay, he probably want to find you on Google Plus, huh?
I would think Google Plus, and he's a search wizard, so he can just search my name, Michael Dominic.
Yeah, he knows how to use that Google search, I would imagine.
I hope his Google foo is very strong.
Of course, Coder Radio is live Monday mornings over at jblive.tv, or Monday afternoons if you're on the East Coast at noon East Coast time, for those crazy East Coast people. Also, thanks to Ronald Jenkins for supplying the music. We have a link to his album in the show notes. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, it's a great song. Go buy his album.
Yeah, absolutely. Go check out, Michael, what's your website?
It's mdominic.com.
Yeah, and you can find me on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/ChrisLAS, or search for me on Google+. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode. See you right back here next week.